Hey gang, it's James Sexton. Welcome to Better Call Sexton. We got a great docket for you today. Jay Cutler going through it with ex-wife Kristen Cavallari. We got the New Yorker magazine asking the question, who gets to define divorce? Maybe we can answer that question for them. The Texas Attorney General shocking the world with announcement of his divorce on biblical grounds. And we take a look at some of our first viewer submissions. Looking forward to it. Let's get after it.
Okay, Jim, up first, we have a little drama from NFL classic Jay Cutler. Let's take a look.
Your ex-wife has been doing her rounds in the media. Quote, I've never gotten a penny from my ex-husband. I didn't get any money from our divorce, so let's just clear that up. And I just wanted to give you the opportunity to tell your side of this story.
I mean, let's think about this logically. Not a penny. Okay. Married for, 7 years or so. 3 kids. You can go and see how much I made in the NFL. It's online. In the state of Tennessee, if we went to the judge and been like, hey, he's going to keep every single dollar over the past 7 years and you're going to get nothing. There's not a judge in the state of Tennessee that would have signed that. They would be like, no, this isn't right. This isn't legal. Not happening. She has a lawyer. I have a lawyer. Is her lawyer really going to be like, fine, you get $0. He gets to keep all the money that was made over the 7 years? Absolutely not. It's irresponsible. I think it's reckless. I think it's borderline slander to insinuate there was $0 split during the marriage that each side
what's funny
got.
about this is, she didn't insinuate anything. She explicitly said she got nothing from her divorce financially. So, look, this is... I represent celebrity clients. I represent athletes and former athletes. I represent actors and actresses. Just don't air your dirty laundry in the public media. It's just not a great thing to do because it invites a response of this kind. And again, I think he took the high road. I think this was actually a very classy way of responding to this. But it's absolutely preposterous. Maybe, again, let's assume for the purposes of this thought experiment that he's not paying her direct child support. There's a million reasons why that might be true. So someone saying, I don't receive any child support is like a woman who's divorced with a co-parent saying, I'm a single mom. No, when you're a single mom, you mean you are co-parenting alone. You don't have another person who's assisting you in the co-parenting. And ideally, that means that you're not receiving any financial support from that person when someone says they're a single mom. So a divorced woman who's receiving child support and who her ex-husband or person they were in a relationship with, their co-parent, is taking the children, half the time or every other weekend and a couple nights for dinner. That's not the same thing as being a purely single mom. So although, and again, this is not a public settlement, it wasn't out there. So when she says something like, when Kristen Cavallari says, I'm not receiving a penny in child support, that might be true. Who knows? It might be demonstrably false, but these are records that are confidential records. They're not supposed to be leaked to the public. So it may not be something that he can pull out a document and show anybody. In addition, what is the point in saying that? Are you suggesting this is a person who's not being financially responsible for their children? This is a man who on record made, $112 million in the course of his NFL career. It's entirely possible that instead of paying basic monthly child support, because they're both people that have a good earning stream and have significant assets, that he gave her a larger share of assets. If somebody gives you $10,000 a month or $120,000 in a lump sum, they're giving you the same amount of money. So I've had plenty of high net worth clients who just say, look, I'll advance pay child support, give her an extra $5 million. And you add it up and you go, okay, that's more than what child support would have been. And you're advance paying it. So you don't have to write this person a check every month. So again, we don't know what happened in this situation, but anytime somebody is airing their dirty laundry publicly, I think the right question is, wait, if you both had lawyers and a judge had to approve this settlement, the suggestion that anybody just completely gave up child support and didn't receive anything and didn't get a penny in their divorce, if it's true, it's usually because either A, the other person had more assets, meaning the person who does not receive child support. But even then, there was a bike messenger, Carlos Leon, who was paying child support to Madonna, who at the time was worth millions, if not billions. So it doesn't really have to do with the earnings of the custodial parent as much as it does the earnings of the non-custodial parent and what the parenting rotation may be. And sometimes when people say, well, I'm not getting any child support. Yeah, because you have the kids 50% of the time. He has the kids 50% of 50% of the time, or you earn more than him, or there was a waiver of spousal support between the two of you, or there was a larger share of assets kept by you. So the positive benefits for the world of knowing what stars of MTV reality-ish shows, the loss of not getting to know what's going on in their post-divorce sex life versus the negative impacts it could have on their children when they air their dirty laundry publicly. I don't think that's much of a balancing test. I think it should be pretty easy to just shut your fucking mouth. New Yorker article about who defines the discourse in divorce. Divorce is just in the air these days, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if it's like divorce summer or something like that, but suddenly New York Times, New York Magazine, everybo's starting the New Yorker, everybody in the New York scene, we're talking about divorce. I mean, I guess it's good for my business model, but interesting article in the new issue of the New Yorker, talking about who gets to essentially own the concept of a divorce and who owns the discourse of it. There's a couple of new books that have come out about divorce and divorce-related content. There's some new television shows that focus on divorce-related content. It's the summer of divorce, and people are talking about it. And this article is a very interesting one, talking about really, who gets to frame the narrative of what happens in a divorce. And it's actually not a bad piggyback to our prior story here today, where, how someone frames their divorce is a very subjective assessment. And I jokingly tell people that the truth is at the bottom of a bottomless pit. If you listen to each side's version of what happened in the demise of a marriage and ultimately in the divorce itself, you get two completely different stories. And thankfully, good, experienced matrimonial attorneys, we don't hear anybody's version of the truth as gospel truth. To paraphrase David Byrne from the Talking Heads, facts all come with points of view. Facts don't do what I want them to. Ultimately, the point of view of each person really has a significant impact. And that's what this article is about. It really talks about the fact that, the memoirs that are coming out now about divorce very much frame the person who wrote them as the victim of divorce, the victim of patriarchy, the victim of a system that's cruel and indifferent towards the needs of a woman going through a divorce. And similarly, if you listen to what the, estranged former spouses of these people say, they say that the system is rigged against men, the system is unfair, that it's, there's too much financial support that's to be paid by men. So again, these are all things that come with a very embedded point of view and self-interest. It's a really good lesson for general people to understand that when people are talking about their divorce, they're telling you their perspective on their divorce, and they're telling you a selective number of facts. And it's really, really dangerous. One of the most dangerous things that happens in my office is people come in and they say, well, this is what my sister said happened in her divorce, or I have a friend who just went through a divorce and this is what she got, so I want that too. And the problem is, A, you don't know that that person is accurately reporting to you every detail of what they received and what was exchanged for each thing. So it's not just, I got the house. Right, I got the house, but I waived his pension, and your husband doesn't have a pension, so there's nothing for you to waive there for you to get the house. So if you just walk out of that discussion with this other person who had completely dissimilar facts, and you go, she got the house, so I'd like the house, that's not a really logical way of approaching things. Behind closed doors, listen, at the negotiating table in the courtroom, I'm an advocate, I'm a weapon. You point me at the other side, you tell me what you want me to argue, and I'm going to argue it as part of a strategy. But behind closed doors with a client, I'm very pragmatic. I'm very quick to tell a client the painful truth. I want to tell them the things they need to hear, not the things they want to hear. And that's what good lawyers do. So this is a good article about who gets to frame the discourse, who gets to own the discourse about divorce. Certainly worth checking out and reading. I'm always glad when divorce is on people's minds and it's in the popular media where it's being discussed in intelligent ways, as opposed to these sort of subjective, stupid, narrative stories, when it's looked at as part of a broader, bigger picture about the nature of human coupling and how we stay together and how we break up.
Up next, we have here a video from our friend, KFC.
Friend of the show, Kevin Clancy, KFC, Barstool Sports. Yes, absolutely.
Tiffany Amber Thiessen, a.k.a. Kelly Kapowski from Saved by the Bell, is going viral on social media for getting naked on Instagram and eating carrot cake, and I'm here for it. Now, in the video, you can hear her ask the question, how do you eat it? And if you listen real close, you can hear every man born between 1980 and 1990 getting bricked up while they roll down their relay. This woman is...
Yeah, I mean, listen, Tiffany Amber Thiessen, Kelly Kapowski, I think there's nothing wrong with her naked nor carrot cake. Those are two really great things independently. And certainly they're two great tastes that go great together, I'd imagine. But yes, the question of asked by KFC, and this is your Mount Rushmore of girls. or guys that made you realize you were straight? It's a great question. It's a fun one. Mount Rushmore's 3, right? So I got to go Tiffany Amber Thiessen. I would put her on that list for me. I'm a little older than Kevin, but I definitely think that she's on that list. And she is still 10 out of 10. I don't know what, there's like a painting of her aging in an attic somewhere right now, like Dorian Gray, because she looks phenomenal. Who would be the other two? I would say, you know what? I would say Elizabeth Shue in The Karate Kid. I was very into her. Also in Leaving Las Vegas, 2 very different shoes, by the way, but both fit. See what I did there? I would say Elizabeth Shue, and I would have to say number 1 for me with a bullet, like absolute number 1. Number 2s are far behind. Jamie Gertz playing the part of Star in The Lost Boys. I think I went through puberty seeing that movie and seeing her in that opening scene where she's like dancing with that flowing hippie type dress. And I think she's like been married to some very famous person for a really long time. So she's one of those like marriage success stories of Hollywood. But she was definitely, I think that was the moment I realized I was heterosexual without question, was sitting in that movie theater. I remember what movie theater it was the first time I saw Star, the character Jamie Gertz, in The Lost Boys, which, by the way, coolest movie ever. Absolutely decided I wanted to grow my hair long, learn how to ride a motorcycle, and become a vampire. I managed to accomplish 2 out of those 3 things. Did not manage, and vampirism is not the one that I accomplished. So we got Elizabeth Shue, Tiffany Amber Thiessen, and number 1, really the biggest out of the 3, not size-wise, but in terms of like where her placement would be, Jamie Gertz, specifically in The Lost Boys.
Up next, we have a story coming out of Texas, the Lone Star State. We've got Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton and his wife, State Senator Angela Paxton, announced they're divorcing after 38 years of marriage.
You hate to see it.
Angela says she filed on, quote, biblical grounds after what she called recent discoveries. The split comes as Paxton challenges Senator John Cornyn in a high-stakes Republican primary despite past scandals, including an impeachment trial, a dropped securities fraud case, and allegations of an extramarital affair.
Ding, 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 ding. Yeah.
People are thinking this might be the recent discoveries and the biblical ground.
That's some biblical shit right there. I mean, as I've said before, it's the only commandment that got 2 of them. You know, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife and don't commit adultery. It's the only one that God was like, listen, don't do it. Seriously, don't do it. Thou shalt not kill only got 1. So yeah, look, you hate to see it. It's a long-term marriage, but this is something about how ugly the situation must be, because to divorce someone, to talk about the basis of it as being biblical in nature, which we all know that can't be something good. I don't think she means love thy neighbor as thyself. And to add to it that it's while he's running in a contested primary, that is a rough combo, man. That is the like dark triad of divorce stuff. So he definitely did something to piss this woman off. Now again, is it something giant and biblical, or is it just leaving the toilet seat up for 3 decades? Either one of those is going to instill potentially some anger in somebody. But this is going to be one that I think is going to play out in a pretty public way until one or both of them get cautioned by their counsel to just lock it down, get it done, and move on. The best revenge is living well. This kind of court of public opinion stuff in a divorce, it's never a good idea. You'll hear me talk about, cases in a very generalized way, in a very narrative way. I do not comment to the press. Even when I have very high profile clients, we do not comment to the press. I don't even comment in response to the comments that are made by my adversaries, some of whom very effectively know how to weaponize the press in public cases with celebrity clients. But I'm not a fan of it. I think it blows up in your face, especially when people have children or grandchildren together. And also judges don't find it funny. I've more than once had to rush into court with a celebrity client and get a gag order, essentially an order that's issued by the court that says an individual is not allowed to discuss the details of this case with the press. You can even have the case be an anonymized caption, which is where they change it from, John Doe and Jane Doe to JD versus JD. So even publicly, you can't look up who it is who's getting divorced. The most high net worth individuals, the most celebrity clients, a lot of them, they do all the property stuff by private arbitration with a paid, usually a retired judge who works as an arbitrator. And we're paying that person for the convenience of being able to show up on time, not have to wait and not do it in a public courthouse, but instead to do it in a conference room of a high-end office of one of the counsel or both. And what you're really paying for is privacy, confidentiality, not having anyone potentially in the room, not having, members of the press in the courtroom, not having, because courtrooms in New York State are open. Unless you're dealing with a case that involves allegations of child sexual abuse or other very specific things, judges very rarely will seal a courtroom. They will allow people to be in there. And so sometimes you go down to 60 Center Street, you don't know whose divorce you might be walking into watching. And so it's better, if possible, to keep these things out of the public purview. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever you call it, it's an infidelity generating machine. This is the section of the show where we talk about the contents of my book, which is available wherever fine books are sold. I feel like I have to say that. My publisher gets so excited. I feel like every time I say that, like my publisher just like sits up, like they could just sense that something happened. There's a disturbance in the force. And you can listen to it on Audible if you want to listen to me talk for 8.5 hours, if half an hour is just not enough for you. But yeah, today we're going to talk about a chapter, I think Facebook, is that what we're talking about today?
Facebook infidelity.
There's a chapter called, if we were going to invent an infidelity generating machine, it would be called Facebook. I'll tell you the truth. If I published this book again right now, I'd probably change that to Instagram, but they're both meta platforms. So thanks, Mark Zuckerberg. You've been good to the divorce industry and we appreciate you. You and Steve Jobs, man, you guys are like the Hall of Fame when it comes to people that created technologies that made it really easy for people to fuck up their marriages. But yeah, I talked a lot about Facebook, Instagram, could be same thing could be said for TikTok. And that is that these are all platforms that put us in touch with people that we really have no business talking to. And they give us a plausible deniability as to why we're communicating with that person. And as I've said before, you hang around a barbershop long enough, you're going to get a haircut. So, we now are put into this orbit of ex-girlfriends, ex-boyfriends, people that we have these very tangential connections to. Our kids do the same sport. Our kids go to the same school. We work out at the same gym, whatever it might be. And this gives us a way to sort of peer into each other's window a little bit and see what the other person is up to. And then it gives us these points of contact of like, oh, wow, I saw that you listed your 5 favorite albums. I love those too. Or, oh yeah, here's my favorite albums. And now you have these points of connection with each other that really create for most people, it's a temptation to there's a novelty of another person. They're interesting and they're interested in who you are. And it's just something that I've seen happen time after time. Facebook, Instagram in particular, just reconnecting people that really don't have any business having that much contact with each other, having that much insight into each other's lives. And it just creates conditions where people really have a lot of opportunities to connect with others. Now, again, if your spouse is active on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, does this mean that they're cheating on you or looking to cheat on you? Certainly not. There's plenty of people that use those technologies for all kinds of benign reasons. But is it something that we as individuals should be a little careful about in terms of monitoring what's going on inside of us? Why am I reaching out to this person? Why am I confiding in this person? Why am I incepting a communication with them that's going deeper than the level it should be? Asking yourself the question, would I send this message if my partner or spouse was going to read it, is a great one. Would I say this to this person in front of my partner or spouse? And if the answer is no, you might want to think before you hit send on it. But yeah, the chapter really just talks about Facebook as being in particular something that connects us with our past. Facebook has a lot of these groups, whether it's alumni groups or whether it's fraternity or sorority alumni groups or whatever it might be, connections between people at the same gym or the same sport activities. And that's just a way to sort of connect with people that you already have some tangential connection with, and you may have had some curiosity about. Very normal to have curiosity about people in your life and kind of wonder what goes on in their lives. And certainly social media gives us, insight into what's going on in people's lives. Of course, not in a real way, in a very sort of curated way. And that's what I always say about Facebook and Instagram and TikTok is, you're not, having a great meal or a great moment in your life and pulling out your phone to look at what's going on TikTok. It's things we do when we're bored. So we're at a very vulnerable place at that moment and looking at everybody else's greatest hits. And it looks like everyone's having such a great time and so in love and so beautiful. People have filters on that makes them look, very different than they are in real life. So I think this is something that we all have to just be a little more mindful of. And that's what the chapter's about.
What's the weirdest social media cheating you've seen? Like, I'm talking like, you had a client who they met someone on Farmer's Meat or like in the Google reviews comments.
I had, that's a good question. The weirdest one I ever had was there was a Reddit board for people that were really into feet and like feet as a sexual object, but My client, a very attractive woman in her late 20s, was married to a guy in his mid 30s, very masculine guy, masculine presenting guy, purportedly heterosexual guy, but he was very into men's feet. And she discovered this on the family computer when she just sort of saw, like in the browser history, that he was posting on these Reddit boards about like wanting to exchange foot pictures with other men of each other's feet. And there was a whole verbiage in there about like whether they're cut or uncut, meaning are your nails trimmed or not, and whether they were clean or not clean, meaning did they have hair or did they wax or shave their feet. And he had very defined preferences as to what he was looking for in terms of feet. And there was even discussion about like, you know, just like buying and selling or trading socks so they could smell each other's feet. And when he got caught with this and confronted, he insisted that he is not gay and that this is just sort of a fetish, a sexual fetish that he has, and it just excites him in some fashion. I thought it was fascinating. At the time, I'll leave him nameless, but one of the attorneys who worked for me when I started talking about like, yeah, I'm reading these posts, I don't know what they mean. This attorney immediately had, you know, answers of, oh yeah, that means this for his feet. Oh, it means it's this size. Uncut means the toes are trimmed this way. And I'm looking at him thinking like, there's a whole side of you I don't know anything about, and I'm not going to dig any deeper on this. But yeah, apparently takes all kinds to make a world, and there's a whole world of feet people out there. And that is the weirdest social media discovery story I've ever had. They divorced fairly amicably, but she was, I think, a little shell-shocked by the foot thing.
All right, so we got our next one up here. We have our first viewer submission. Want to do a quick little read-in?
Oh boy, all right. Yes, remember submissions at sextonshow.com. We are starting to get inundated with them, which we appreciate. So feel free to send anything along. Story ideas, questions, comments, anything like that. My team reads it. They curate it for me, so I don't have to read all of them. But please feel free. But yes, this is our first one we're addressing on air. This is from Scott Boras. Scott writes, is there a world where having marital, quote, opt-outs, unquote, of, quote, or, quote, renegotiations, unquote, is feasible or effective? In business, sports, life, there are no lifetime agreements, and when circumstances change, where a person's value, performance, or life circumstances change, all these agreements are altered or re-examined. Does anyone apply this logic to marriage? Have you ever negotiated something like that, or could you? Could lawyers essentially become, quote, love agents, unquote, that's a cool job title, and work throughout a marriage instead of just when divorce hits? And that's from Scott Boras. Scott, thank you for writing to us and for raising this interesting thought experiment. I think there's a world where people could do that. I haven't seen it done yet. I have certainly seen people negotiate what we call postnuptial agreements, which is like the prenup they should have had but didn't, or modifying a prenup that they previously did, or the marriage gets to a fragile place and they both say, look, I don't want the threat of divorce to be the thing that has us motivated to stay in the marriage. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to negotiate the terms of our separation now, even though we're not separating, so that in case we split up, this is what it's going to be. But yeah, look, I think that, you know, the idea of like marriage, instead of it being like buying the cow, as they say, that you're sort of leasing with an option to buy, or it's a contract you sign up for and you get to renew it every couple of years, or maybe every year you get to decide if you want to re-up. Yeah, that's, look, marriage is something that we as a society came up with the legal status of. The concept of marriage as a pair bond or as a religious principle, obviously that predates our legal system. But in terms of what most people are referring to when they say marriage, and certainly what I'm referring to when I say marriage, because my job is to undo and facilitate the demise of unhappy marriages in a legal sense of the word, most people are talking about the legal contract of marriage. We came up with those laws. Those laws are created by the legislature. They're changed by the legislature all the time. So there's absolutely nothing preventing us from saying, hey, let's do it differently, except we have to get everybody on board with it. So I always like to ask the question anytime I look at a new way of doing something, what would be the potential second order effects of that, the things we didn't anticipate, right? Because that's what we have to really worry about. And that's what a good lawyer is paid to be paranoid. So when I hear something like this, I think there are great reasons for it. And you said some of them in the question, altering and re-examining the nature of the contract as life circumstances change. Smart thing to do. The downside of it, of course, is that people very often have a hand in their circumstances, and you can steer into those kinds of circumstances. So if an individual decides, hey, I'm kind of unhappy in this marriage, but I also don't want to pay very much support to the other person, so I'm going to intentionally kind of steer my professional ship right into the rocks over the next year or so, and then we'll renegotiate based on my now intentionally impaired status. That presents a lot of opportunities for chicanery. So, it's just like the tax code. The IRS creates a tax code. It's intended to close certain loopholes. And every time they close the loophole, they make new ones. So then highly paid tax lawyers very quickly come in and find all the new loopholes and say, okay, everybody, let's focus on doing X, Y, and Z. And then it takes a couple of years for the IRS to close those loopholes. And again, when they close it, they open new ones. So it's the same thing with this. I don't think there's a perfect way to do divorce or even to do the legal concept of marriage. There's just ways that create one set of problems and ways that create a different set of problems. I think this is a different way to do it. And if we as a society decide we want to do it that way, we certainly have the right to. Legally, you could certainly both have counsel and you could negotiate something like that. One of the great things we have in America is the capacity to contract. So people have the right to engage in contracts that they consider to be fair between the two people, and where there's what we call a mutuality of consideration, where people are sharing, they're sharing benefit and burden. It doesn't have to be totally equivalent, but each person's giving something, each person's getting something. So why not? I think it'd be great to start thinking about other ways to handle the marital agreement, the marital contract, or different ways to approach the legal status of marriage, because the current one we suck at. Our divorce rate's over 50%. So, you got a lot of room for improvement there, and maybe completely wiping the board clean and starting over with new ways of doing it might be a great way to do it. I'm all for it. Hey gang, thanks for watching. We had a full docket today. Remember to like and subscribe. Remember to send us submissions at sextonshow.com. We read everyone. And thanks for, like I said, for spending some time with us again.